Could the Rebbe have been the Moshiach? Can Moshiach come back as Moshiach if he died? Now people say, well, isn't that Christianity? Well, yeah, it is, but it's a different God. Moshiach doesn't know he's Moshiach yet. If Moshiach can come every day, we believe that. That means there is somebody in the world today that would be Moshiach.
Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Aaron Sokol, and you're watching Parsha Inspired. Check out this great clip over here with Rabbi Yitzchak Breitowitz asking the question no one wants to ask. We'll watch it together, then talk about it. But first, hit subscribe in the corner. We'd love to keep this conversation going.
Many say that the Lubavitcher Rebbe is Moshiach. The question is it possible that the Lubavitcher Rebbe is Moshiach?
Yeah, this is one of those when did you stop beating your wife questions, meaning whatever I answer, I'm going to get in trouble. First, I do want to say for sure, Lubavitcher Rebbe was a phenomenally great man, great in learning, great in righteousness, great in his Mesiras Nefesh for Klal Yisrael. There's no possible negative thing I could possibly say about the Rebbe, and again, his greatness is phenomenal. And I'll tell you, one of my guilty pleasures is I like to watch the Rebbe on YouTube. I like to see the dollar ceremonies and all the different things and the different advice he gives people, because there is so much wisdom. So everyone should understand that anything I say is not a criticism of an unbelievable leader. And you can see the greatness of his leadership because after, about 30 years already, almost 30 years since his death, Lubavitch Chabad is a worldwide movement that keeps on going based on his inspiration, which means he's still leading them. I'm not talking about mystical stuff, but his teachings are leading this movement that, love him or hate him, and I love him. When you're in Hong Kong or Australia or Antarctica, I guess, I don't know if it's Antarctica, Chabad will get you kosher food, and at least a minyan on Shabbos. So very, very great. Now, the issue of whether he could be Moshiach is more or less a technical issue. When he was alive, there was no question he could have been Moshiach. And indeed, when the messianic speculation first began to surface in the 70s, and the Rebbe's Moshiach, so somebody went to Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, who was still alive, and said, you have to issue a proclamation. They're saying the Rebbe's Moshiach. So Rabbi Moshe Feinstein said, so what would be so bad if the Rebbe would be Mashiach? Why not? And keep in mind the following point. If Mashiach can come every day, we believe that. That means there is somebody in the world today that would be Mashiach. There has to be. And 100 years ago there was somebody, and 200 years ago there was somebody, and 500 years ago there was somebody, because if there wouldn't be somebody, the Mashiach couldn't have come. So every generation, there is what you might call a potential Mashiach of that generation. Does that potential person know? Not necessarily. He may live and die, without ever knowing that he was the guy if the Jewish people were deserving. Right? So Mashiach doesn't know he's Mashiach yet until Hashem decides to reveal himself. So could the Rebbe have been the Mashiach? For sure. He certainly met the qualifications of righteousness descended from David HaMelech. Okay. You could argue, you can go through the Rambam's list. You can say it mentions he'll fight the wars of God. Okay, but that could mean different things. That could mean fighting assimilation. It doesn't have to mean an army, so to speak. The question is, though, once somebody dies, and I'm assuming the Rebbe died. I'm not going with there are extreme views that the Rebbe didn't even die. Okay, I'm not going there. But assuming he died on the 3rd of Tammuz, so can Moshiach come back as Moshiach if he died? Now, Christianity believes yes. In fact, that was the problem with Christianity, because Yashka was initially claimed to be a Messiah, but he didn't do anything. He didn't build a temple. He didn't bring back the Jews from the Galus. So Christianity invented the second coming to deal with that particular problem. Yeah, he didn't do it the first time. He'll come back the second time. Ramban, however, says in a famous debate that he had with a Jewish apostate that Judaism does not believe in a second coming. Once somebody is proclaimed to be Mashiach, he has to finish the job. He will die, Mashiach will die, but he has to finish the job. If he doesn't finish the job, that's a sign that he was not the designated Mashiach for that generation. So that's what the Ramban says. And I would also point out there's a certain logic to that, because if you're going to go with the idea that Mashiach can come back from the dead, then why should it be Lubavitcher Rebbe? Why can't it be David HaMelech? I mean, why can't it be earlier people once they're going to come back from the dead? There's no reason why it has to be the last one. So as a result, I think most of the Torah world, even those who are very pro-Lubavitch, I'm not counting the anti-Lubavitch, even the pro-Chabad people believe that the Rebbe will not come back as the Melech HaMashiach because he died before he completed his mission. Perhaps he could have been Mashiach had the generation been worthy of him revealing himself. Now, Chabad claims, and again, this is a legitimate discussion, that there are some Makoros, some sources, that take issue with the Ramban and do believe that the Mashiach can come back from the dead. And that's not, now people say, well, isn't that Christianity? Well, yeah, it is, but it's a different guy. I mean, the fact that second coming is a Christian idea is not proof that it can't also be a Jewish idea. I mean, that's not really an argument, right? People always say, that can't be because that's Christianity. Well, okay. I mean, we don't believe that Yashka's Mashiach for a different Rebbe, but the Rebbe could be. So Chabad does have some sources that say Mashiach can come back from the dead. The Abarbanel brings such a thing. There is a possible Gemara in Sanhedrin that might be understood that way. It might be, because there are different ways of interpreting the Gemara. So I always tell people that if you believe Moshiach can come back from the dead, you cannot be called an apikoros. You cannot be called a kofar. There is a basis for that view, but it seems that most would regard you as mistaken. And as I've said many, many times, a mistake is not heresy. A mistake is not apikoros. It's a difference of opinion. And we don't know. When it happens, we'll know. When it happens, we will know. That's the joke they say. I shouldn't tell you this joke, but it's a Christian joke, but it can apply to this as well. That somebody calls up the Pope and says, I have good news and bad news. He says, the good news is Messiah has arrived. He says, so what's the bad news? He's coming from Salt Lake City, which is Mormon, but okay. so okay, that's a Christian joke, but you can make the joke Jewish. Good news, Mashiach has come. Bad news, it's from 770. We'll find out when it happens, and God will make it known in His good time. But all I would say is that right now, the majority of opinion seems to say Mashiach will not come back from the dead.
So here's what I think everybody is missing. You see, Mashiach, we use that term, and yet nowhere in Tanakh, I don't believe, is the word Mashiach referring towards the Messiah, for the person who is the king who comes at the end of time and builds the Beis HaMikdash and returns the exile and fights the wars of the Jewish army against its enemies who come up against it. Any interpretation of the enemies coming up against it that was in Europe when we didn't have Eretz Israel are understandable. But today that we have an army, the Mashiach comes at the end of it. And the Tanakh doesn't use that term because this magical Mashiach moment, like I've heard from Rabbi Josh Wander mention, this instant change may be true if Mashiach comes at the year 6000. That means there's a specific deadline, let's call it the year 6000, and by that time Mashiach may just come in an instant. But I don't even think it means that. It means that Hashem will prepare the world for that moment. And I think that's what we're witnessing right now. Meaning that if we don't bring Mashiach physically by returning to the land and building up Yerushalayim, then Mashiach will do that for us. But Hashem promises that before Mashiach is actually known as the Mashiach, as the king, I keep using the word Mashiach, but it's the king from the Davidic dynasty who follows the Torah, the written and oral Torah, and restores the Jewish people back to their Torah. If we look in the prophets, it's a process. It doesn't happen in one day. The prophets again and again repeat that Hashem will return and return. V'atomer Tzion azavani Hashem Zion cries out and says, God has forsaken me, God tells the land that the Jewish people will continue to return. In fact, the war of Gog and Magog happens when the Jews are back in Eretz Israel. And the war of Gog and Magog needs to happen before Moshiach comes, because Moshiach comes and is known to be the king only after he fights the battles and only after he builds the Beis Hamikdash. Now, I would agree that there are opinions about this. I'm not saying that everything I'm saying is finite, but the same way Rabbi Breitowitz was willing to extend the rope and say, yes, Chabad has what to base itself on. Does he agree with it? No, he doesn't. I don't think he agrees with it. But I think the important message that we need to take out of this is that I don't think there's a debate that we are in Messianic era. We are in the Emos HaMashiach. We are what Chazal call the Ikvasa de Mashiach, the footsteps of Messiah. Rabbi Zev Leff, I'll be careful to mention, did mention that it is possible that Mashiach could fulfill some of these things. He may not be known as Mashiach yet and then die. That is possible. But once the work has been done, we built the Beis Hamikdash, it'll be too late to be involved. And this is what Rabbi Tovia Singer said to me. He's like, once the revelation gets stronger and stronger, once the realization that the Jewish people are returned to their land, the prophet Ezekiel says that he will plant the Jewish people on the land. Meaning once we return, we'll be planted. Hashem wants us to take the move. If we open up the Chumash, and this might come to a shock to you, but I think it's blatantly obvious. The 5 books of Moses, the Chumash, is the story of the Jewish refusal to come to Eretz Israel. We're in Numbers right now, Bamidbar, the story of the desert. It's the Jewish refusal to return to Eretz Israel. So, therefore, my friends, if we were exiled, Asher Masu Ba'aretz, we were exiled because we didn't want this land. To talk about Moshiach and not talk about Eretz Yisrael is probably the biggest disconnect that could be right now within the Jewish people. Thank you for watching. Shalom. I hope this video opened up your eyes to some new ideas. If you have comments, if you have interpretations, this was not meant to make any bad or ill feelings, but I think that this could awaken within us an opportunity to re-examine what Moshiach is, re-examine what Eretz Israel is. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like the video, share it. These all things help this channel grow, help get this message out. If you want to do your part, share the video. Yasher koach. Thank you so much.